welcome to Hometown Heroes. Your host is Mike Kenichi.
And that is the best opening we have ever had on this show. Good evening, everyone. I'm, of course, Mike Kenichi, and you just heard from the Mad Dog, Chris Russo, formerly of the popular Mike and the Mad Dog Show, and currently Mad Dog Unleashed, Channel 82 XM Sirius Radio. And we are also joined by his son, Timothy, who is going to be a junior at the University of Tampa, correct?
Yes.
You know, Tim, I got to tell you, when I look at you, it is hard to believe that you're going to be a junior in college. I could still remember you climbing on the table in your dad's studio when you were like 2 years old. Chris, my question for you is, does it, number one, make you feel old? And number two, are you surprised it went by so quick?
Hey, you're always surprised it went by so quick. And I don't think about the age thing. You take it day by day. I mean, it is a long time ago when we had him at these FAN studios, and he was bouncing around and had him do all the imitations. What's a duck say? What's a lion say? Da, da, da,
Right.
da, da. And he complied. That was a long time ago. So you take it. I don't see him too much anymore. You know, I didn't see him all summer. He go to school here at the end of the month, and I won't see him until December. So I text him. You know, that's the millennium way of communicating now. Never on the phone. It's a text scenario.
Oh yeah.
But I'll keep in touch with him, so I know what's going on. But he's been a New Canaanite his whole life, so it is a little weird that he's this old, 20 years old, 21. This is 19, 20 years ago. You take it day by day. You can't worry about the past. Just go out there and do your thing.
Right. So Tim, let me ask you, how did the love for sports, number one, start? And number two, how did you get into basketball? Would you say sports started with watching your father on TV or listening to him on the radio every day?
Yeah, probably. It was probably when I started going to baseball games with him. He'd take me to a bunch of Met games and Yankee games here and there. We've also done a lot of traveling for like my AAU tournaments and with like the YMCA and just going back and forth like with these leagues. But yeah, so like I just started basketball early, and I think I started basketball in like second, third grade. And I guess my earliest memory would just be my dad just driving me and just sitting on the sidelines and just clapping and just screaming and yelling. So I guess I kind of got into basketball there, and then I think that's where I kind of gravitated towards the travel leagues and just trying to take my game to higher levels. And there just made a lot of friends, and yeah, it's one from there.
Right. Now let me ask you, were you a tennis fan at all? Because we know your dad is an avid tennis player. Did you get into that ever as a young kid?
I played early. I don't think I was very good. I do enjoy watching pro tennis. I still do. I did play a little bit when I was younger, but I kind of gravitated more towards golf nowadays. I don't play tennis, no, not at all.
Right. Now, Chris, I'm very surprised. I can understand why you hated the Yankees when they were winning all those championships. But if you really think about it, when you were a young kid, the Yankees were really bad. So it's very surprising that the hatred was there as a kid. Just explain how the hatred started.
Well, my father drove me crazy. You know, Joe DiMaggio this, Joe DiMaggio that.
Right.
The Yankees got good in the mid-'70s. He was a big tease.
Yeah.
And that always bothered me. So I always rebelled against anything that was New York. I rooted for the Lakers in the '69 NBA Finals against the Knicks.
Yeah.
I probably rooted for the Blackhawks and Bruins and Flyers when they played the Rangers in the early '70s.
Right.
I certainly, I don't recall rooting for the football Giants. The Jets were, '69. I don't recall being anti-Jets the year they won it. But certainly was anti-Yankee. And then they got good. The Yankees got to be a pretty good team there in the mid-'70s. And I was almost like I rooted against my father. It's the weirdest thing. He roots for the same teams that I root for. He roots for the Giants,
right.
Federer. He's going along the lines, he follows me. I did not follow my father. My father was not a big football fan.
Right.
So his favorite sport was baseball. He grew up in the 40s, late 30s, early 40s, and the Yankees, there was no NBA. The Giants football was not a big deal. So it was a baseball town. So he always loved the baseball and always loved the Yankees, but I just never followed down the same path for whatever the reason.
Right. And he mentioned that you were a big Giants fan, and you also like the New York Football Giants, correct?
Yeah.
But interestingly, you're a big New Orleans Pelicans fan.
Yeah.
Now, explain how that all came about.
Okay, so in the final when Kentucky played, when Anthony Davis was on the team, I think that was like one of the first college basketball games I've really ever watched, like from start to finish. And my father pointed out Anthony Davis, big number 23, blocking shots, running up and down the floor. He told me that I kind of played like him in the sense that I just run the floor and just kind of do what I'm told. He didn't have a great offensive game that particular game, but he said, Tim, he's going to be a huge big-time player. and you should, just keep an eye on him. So I watched him the whole game. I really loved the way he played. He was versatile. And then he gets drafted by the Hornets. And then ever since he got drafted, I've just been a fan of that New Orleans team. Then they changed the name to the Pelicans after the first year. And then obviously this past offseason, he did a poor job with requesting a trade. I think I'm going to ride with the Pelicans still, but I think my love for the team just came from him.
Right. Now, your father mentioned that he had to live with Joe DiMaggio his whole life. So my question is to you, have you had to live with Bruce Springsteen your whole life?
I'm actually a huge Bruce Springsteen fan.
Right.
I think my dad took me to a concert when I was in 6th and 7th grade. We went to go see, he was premiering Wrecking Ball, right? Was that the album?
Yeah, that was it. And it was over at the Meadowlands.
Yeah, it was at
Right.
MetLife, which was really cool. So I'm actually a huge Bruce Springsteen fan. He's actually my go-to artist when it comes to listening to music. But yeah, so, I've had to deal with him a lot over the course of my life, but I've obviously grown to love him too.
So Chris, it's safe to say Tim has not rebelled against you
No,
at
he
all.
really hasn't. I notice he picks up a lot of the things that I have liked. Again, Springsteen, the Giants baseball team, he's got some sort of an affinity towards. I was very happy on May 14th because you certainly knew that he was going to get traded, Davis, and he wanted out. So the fact that they they got the #1 pick, that's the thing that saved the Pelicans really for now in the foreseeable future. They lose Davis, but the gods were smiling on him, so they got the #1 pick. That gives them a chance to get Zion. So they replaced one megastar with another, and he was so happy that they won that lottery because we all knew that he was going to be the #1 pick. So the draft lottery that night, he had just gotten home from school, maybe about 10 days beforehand, and I was at the PGA that Tuesday covering the at Bethpage, and I drove quickly home. I went to Cherry Street. 8:30 the lottery was, and I got there in time to see the drawing, and I was so happy the Pelicans won because he needed something. So that gave him. Every fan needs some hope, and losing Davis, they had a bad year. He was very annoyed when they fired Monty Williams. He hates Will Demps, the OGM. So I thought his fandom was waning, and you always want to be a fan.
Right.
So he needed something to get him reattached with the team. So the fact that the Pelicans won the lottery that night made me very happy, and he was all excited. He sent out videos screaming and yelling, "Oh my God, oh my!" and he put the cuss word in the middle of it. But he was so excited, made me happy.
Right. So let's talk about the San Francisco Giants now. It took your father about 50 years to see a championship. I think you were 11 years old when they won their first one. My question is, were you able to stay up for the celebration when they won? And what was that like for you and for father and son to get to share that moment together?
Yeah, I do remember that World Series championship. Bumgarner pitched great in that first, in that clutch game. It was really cool to see my dad's reaction. At that time, he was like an avid fan, so he was just jumping up and down, screaming, yelling. Same thing with the Pelicans lottery pick. He was just really happy. But I was able to stay up and watch it. It's just really cool to see my dad kind of get a championship in his lifetime. And it kind of gave him a chance to stick it to my grandfather. So it was really cool. It was also really cool for me to see three championships in the 5-year span. So for me to see all those World Series games and to see Bumgarner and some of those big time players perform clutch spots and see my dad really happy, it was awesome.
Well, two things. One, we sat there for Game 3 of the 2010 series against Atlanta.
Right.
And the Giants almost blew that game. They had a 1-0 lead. And the Braves got a couple of runs in the bottom of the 8th on 2 home runs. And I was all upset. He said, "Dad, they're going to win this game." This 11-year-old kid, "Dad, they're going to settle down. They're going to win this game." They came back and won the game. And then I took him to Game 1, the Phillies, the NLCS, when Holiday pitched against the late Lord Holiday pitched against Lincecum, and Cody Ross hit 2 home runs.
Yeah,
so he went to that game too. We sat in Philadelphia and we stayed overnight and everything else. So he happened to see one of those games, which is important when they beat the Phillies. I really felt confident they were going to beat the Phillies. I thought the Phillies were they were a dominant NL team. I really thought the Giants were going to win, and I was right. And I just thought it was their time. I thought, their World Series, that franchise hadn't won anything, so I thought it was their time. And he got a chance to get a little sense of that. He's an 11-year-old kid, and he'll get that chance with the Pelicans. One day they're on the right path. They will win a title one day, and hopefully I'm still around to see it, and because that's the team he loves.
Right.
All the other teams, the football is fantasy. He's in and out of it. Baseball likes the Giants. It's not do or die. The Pelicans are his Giants. So hopefully I'll be around one day to see him have a chance to win a championship.
Right, and it's kind of funny because you don't really have an NBA team.
I really don't have an NBA team, no.
Right.
I did in the old days. I don't have one now. My other son is a big Jacksonville Jaguar fan, which is weird, the Jaguars.
Right.
I will enjoy that too. And the worst thing I ever did, and I didn't think of it at the time, I bet the Patriots to beat Jacksonville in 2000, 2 years ago in the AFC title game.
Yeah.
Now, why would I do something so stupid? And he's a big Jaguar fan, and he was crushed when they lost. Patriots won, did not cover.
Right.
So I learned my lesson. I will never do that again. So hopefully he'll get the Jaguars, but more importantly, he's been a Pelican fan a little longer than his brother's been a Jaguar fan. So I'd like to see the Pelicans win a title for him.
Right. And now, Tim, correct me if I'm wrong. You're a big Coach K fan, correct? Mike Krzyzewski.
I do, yeah.
Right.
I
And I believe you met him sometime at a town hall event, and he was really polite to you, and you wrote him a thank you letter, correct?
Yeah.
And he actually wrote you back. Talk about that a little bit.
It was my 13th birthday. I think it was when I was in 7th grade. My dad had to do an interview with him. I think he was celebrating one of his big time wins or something.
Well, it was a town hall.
Yeah.
It was 2 hours in that Cameron Indoor, and you had a broken arm, and you came with me.
Yeah, so for my birthday, he took me to see Duke and kind of get like a bit of a campus tour and athletic facility tour. So, and obviously I was able to meet Coach K, which was an unbelievable experience. He brought me into his office for like 15 minutes and kind of just talked to me about recovering from a broken arm or just playing in the travel leagues and just being thankful for some of the blessings that I've received and being able to play again and all that. It was really cool, and I love the way he coaches, but I think that was one of the coolest moments in my entire life.
Right, and Duke won a championship that same year the Giants did in 2010.
That's right.
Which was the first one, and I'm no Duke fan, I apologize, but what was that like? Because that was a great game against Butler. Butler almost won it right at the buzzer. What was that game like for you?
I think for the basketball game, I thought that was pretty unbelievable.
That's when Hayward missed a shot.
Yeah,
at
that's when
the
he
end.
missed a shot at half court, yeah. I thought that was really cool, and I think just to see Coach K win one and then my dad being really happy with the baseball, I thought that was really cool. Kind of got like a best of both worlds kind of thing. I was really nervous for Duke there in that game. Because Butler was tight, and was in neck and neck with them.
Plus, later on, they beat Wisconsin in
Yeah.
the championship game. We watched that together. So you had a couple of Duke championships, right?
Yeah, was that when they had Kamitsky and Decker? Was that year?
Yes, that was that year.
Okay.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. So I mean, I think as you can see, I've seen a lot of championships with my dad, and but nothing beats the San Francisco Giants World Series games. I think just nothing beats that. I think.
Right. So let's talk a bit about your basketball career. You played on a very good Stanford AAU team, I believe, when you were like 11 or 12 years old. I know, and some of those kids were like 6'1", 6'2". Would you say playing in those AAU teams, travel teams, really helped you better your game? Was that beneficial to you?
Yeah, I do think so. I think playing just AAU in general, I think just really helped because back when I played AAU, it was more team basketball. It wasn't more of like the showboating like you see nowadays. So, and I think playing for a team like Stanford Peace, with diverse kids and different kind of talents, and it kind of pushed me to just kind of uproot my game and just try to learn how to play with some of these kids and these tougher coaches. And I think it really helped me, be ready for varsity basketball. But yeah, I had a great time playing in those games. I honestly enjoyed playing against like the really top AAU teams. I remember we played against a team called the Wrens.
Yeah.
We lost 97-17 at Lakewood High School where Jared Smith went. I think that was the coolest game I ever played, and because I had 7 points in that game.
You made 2 jump shots right away.
Yeah, 2 jump shots, and I think I had a
Right.
free throw. So, but yeah, so to answer your question, yes, I do think that playing AAU and playing with these diverse guys and these hard coaches certainly helped play.
Plus, you met Moser.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Coach Moser was my first AAU.
Second. Mo was your first.
Yeah, he was my second AAU coach, and he kind of tried to enforce like the hard coaching or like the hard, just the hardship of basketball. So I was able to meet him and a lot of other great players, and it was a really good experience.
So now, the joke about Chris for years, your father, is he could analyze anything. If you got a pepperoni pizza, he could analyze, everything about it. you're 10 years old, you're playing in a game, and the team has a tough loss, you have a tough game. Is he in the car with you analyzing your game and the team on the way home?
Yeah.
Tell me what that's like.
A lot of the times during the games, like he'll give me like head nods, or he'll give me like point fingers, or like he'll just tell me like get back out there, just make a jump shot or whatever. And when you see my dad's look in his eye when he sees me not playing well or sees me getting subbed out, it's really terrifying. So it almost motivates me to get back out there and just keep playing. But yeah, so after a lot of bad losses, he really enjoys going to the car ride, no music, no phones, and just he likes to break down every second or every poor play I made. Not so much the good plays, but the very poor plays. I think I've had a lot of tough car rides with him, just breaking down some of my turnovers.
But lots of times I don't say anything at all, though.
Sometimes
I'm silent.
But again, yes. So just sometimes, like there are obviously a lot of good car rides, a lot of good bad ones. But it's very analytical. It's more the analytical side than just playing better. I think it's just him breaking things down rather than.
And he had a lot of good moments in AAU.
Right.
The one at Mohegan Sun when you played great, I was into that. The one up in Massachusetts when Tish coached, and you played really well. That with Donnie, you played. I can remember all those games. Now, again, what bothered me is when I saw him, be lacking. When I just saw he wasn't into it. Every kid's not going to be into it, and there were times that he would just, you could tell, body language, and he wouldn't be engaged in the game. When Timmy was engaged in the game, he didn't have to make shots, but he did the little things. And when I saw that in his eye, that's what made me happy.
Right.
It was the days where I was more into it than he was. Just the same thing with my other children. That drives me crazy. and that's, I think that, and I would go to every single one. His mother wouldn't go, it'd be me. And so I think that drove him crazy. I think, it's tough on a kid, and I'm sitting there breaking down again. But I was at every tournament, and I love those drives. We get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and drive to Massachusetts, wherever we went. So I really loved it. And it was, I enjoyed that whole weekend. And, sometimes, he may not be into it that weekend. It's a May, spring, nice weather, and he's got to go with his old man in Massachusetts for 2 days. A lot of kids not going to do that, after he played all winter. So that's where the little friction occurred. But for the most part, I think the experiences were well worth it, correct?
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
And interestingly, I can remember a couple shows of yours. You just spent the entire show breaking down his game, his team's game. I mean, for both of you, Chris, number one, you're doing that because you're doing that as a favor to your son. It's a day where not a lot's probably going on, and you could do that. Right. So it's something you could give to him. And at the same time, Tim, it's got to make you feel good that your father is that proud of you that he would spend a whole broadcast breaking down your game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember in 8th grade he had both coaches on because we were in the 8th grade championship for New Canaan. We were playing Darien.
Yeah.
So I remember he brought on my head coach and then Darien's head coach, and then he talked about some of the players and like our game plan or just whatever the case was. So it's really cool to see that my dad's taken such an interest in basketball. I don't want to say it's because of me, because my dad is a pretty good sports fan and he goes all the games. But it is really cool to see that he, on his national radio show, that he,
Well, those 2 jumpers you made against Danbury in the 8th grade, which got you in the championship. I was at St. Joe's, and I fell off the stands, and I was so excited.
Yes. Wow.
He made 2 big hoops, and he did nothing the whole game. And then at the end of the game, we had a couple of foul guys.
Right.
He made the 2 biggest baskets of the game.
In overtime,
And free throws, everything else. He dominated the game. So there are some, and you never forget those moments. I miss them. I don't have them anymore.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So you miss it.
And Chris, let me ask you this. You talk about these trips to Massachusetts, your other children who play this and that, your talk show, everything you do. My question is to you: when do you have time to shut your eyes? Because it sounds like you never have time between working out in the morning.
No, I have time. It's not, I'm on, essentially I'm on, afternoons is what my shift is, essentially.
Right.
Between 12 and 6. The train ride is easy enough. I don't have to get up at 5 a.m. to go to the train, which most people do. It's, it's a long commute from here. Some days I can do the radio from home.
Oh, you can. Okay.
I can,
yeah.
Because that makes it a little easier too. Right. I find the time. It seems like it's more because you hear me a lot and you might watch occasionally. Right. So it seems like my day is a little longer than it might really seem to be for the average fan. But I have it programmed properly where I get my breaks. It's not, it's, you know, I mean, I get plenty of time to mellow out. And in the old days with him and his brother, I mean, I love going, you know, I love coming home and going to those tournaments. I may not love getting home at 8 o'clock on a Sunday night,
right?
You know, but I love going to those tournaments, and his younger brother too, but more with him because he played more. You know, his other brother guy had an injury and everything else, but he played more. But and he was also the first one doing it, so I loved it. And I went to all the high school games. I mean, I must have went through hula hoops, freshman, sophomore, to get to those games. I mean, you'd be amazed what I did.
Those games started 7
o'clock. And don't forget, JV was earlier, 5:15.
Right.
So I would have to figure out a way to be home at 5 o'clock. I mean, I went through hula hoops, but I love those games. I live for them.
Right.
So there was a period there for 3 or 4 years where it was my life, and the team was lousy that senior year. So, but I did everything I could to get to every game they could get to, essentially.
Let's talk a little bit about your high school career, because not only were you a good basketball player, you were a very good runner. You ran cross country, you ran track, and I believe one of your best times in the mile was like a 5:05, correct?
Yeah, it was a freshman year at West High School, yeah.
Right. So talk about like running track, because you know, obviously you were a distance runner, and they give you some killer workouts. I remember those half-mile repeats; those things are a killer. Just talk about what that's like. But I bet that helped you stay in shape a lot for basketball as well, correct?
Yeah. I kind of discovered track a little later in my career. I probably didn't discover track until about 8th grade, when the women's track and field coach I was at one of those like day camps or something like that, and he saw me run, and he thought I had a lot of potential. So he told the head coach for the boys team, and I went out for the track team in the spring because I was kind of convinced to. But yes, like some of those workouts are really tough. They're, you know, very time consuming and very draining. But like you said, it really kept me in shape for AAU, and I kind of had to balance that out with track and the AAU season. So. But yeah, so I mean, I was better in track early on in my career, not so much down the stretch, but yeah, so my best mile time was like a 5:05, and my best half mile was a 2:09.
Wow.
At Danbury.
At Danbury, yeah, which you saw.
Yeah, I saw that one.
Yeah, so yeah, like track was my second sport. I was for some reason pretty good at it. I think I kind of gravitated more towards basketball as my high school career went on. But freshman year, I was pretty darn good at the track. I feel like.
You got a varsity letter.
Yeah, varsity letter, and
I mean, he ran in the FCX, ran in the States. I mean, he ran very well. But he was more of the team. You know, that track, you got to love to run.
Right, yeah, you
got to love it. And, you know, he didn't love to run, per se. He was good at it, but he didn't love it.
Right, exactly. Now, let's talk about New Canaan basketball. One thing about New Canaan, to me anyway, they've always been a football school first. But how would you say your basketball career went? I know your senior year wasn't a great year, but I think you were playing JV as a freshman, were you not?
Yeah, it was.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, talk about that. And you played with a kid who I believe was a 1,000-point scorer, and Tyler Sweeney.
Yep.
So just talk about your career at New Canaan.
We kind of had a weird transition with the coaches too down the stretch. But freshman year, yeah, I started off as a JV. So it was kind of a weird transition, you know, playing with, you know, the 8th grade team with some of those, you know, with some of those guys, and then not being able to play with them freshman year. So I thought that was kind of a weird transition. And I think I kind of missed playing freshman basketball just because the coach at the time was good, and some of the other guys I played with in middle school was on that team. So it was kind of a weird transition, but it was really helpful because I was able to practice with the varsity team, because JV and varsity have overlapping practices. So I was able to be using some of the varsity drills and all that. So freshman year was good. I feel like I kind of transitioned well. I feel like I did play well in some big spots. And then as the years go on, we go up to junior year, where I didn't have a great year junior year. I didn't play that much, which was fine at the time. But I was able to, you know, like that was like the kind of the beginning of our coaching transition. So Danny Melzer came in from Stanford when he brought his staff over my senior year. So it was really cool to play with him again, you know, ever since AAU. And I did think I played pretty hard for him. But yeah, like you said, senior year was kind of a tough year. You know, we transitioned coaches. But my career was, I thought it was a success. And yes, Tyler is like one of my best friends, and he just scored 1,000 points. Too bad we weren't that great, but it
You
gets
played with
sometimes.
another kid, Charlie Grau or
Bro,
Grow.
yeah.
He was a good player
Yeah, he was
too.
one of my point guards senior
Right.
year, yeah.
Then there was James Cravato.
Yep,
right?
James Cravato, yeah.
He was
He's-
very good.
Yeah, he was like the muscle kind of behind the team.
Right.
And then Austin Bell as well, who was another one of my teammates in middle school, kind of transitioned with me. But yeah, it was a really good senior year. Play with some of those guys again. I do miss it, don't get me wrong, but we did have a coaching transitional period, so it was kind of tough to adjust, but other than that, it was fine.
Right. Now let me ask you, Chris, what kind of fan are you? Are you the type to yell at the referees if you don't like
At
something?
times, not anymore. Well, listen, I get wrapped up in the game. One thing I do well, I've been close to the couple of coaches, Melzer especially. I stayed out of it. I mean,
Right.
I was tricky, man. He's coaching my son senior year, and he's a very good guy, and I knew him from the AAU days, and you have a different relationship with the
Right.
AAU coach than you do with the. So I always try to stay away from. I let him coach Timmy. I used to tell him, "You coach, I'll watch."
Right.
And I let him basically do that. And Timmy had a good senior year for him. Again, the team wasn't very good. We had a couple of injuries. One kid who was going to be a good sized kid for us tore his ACL in November.
Yeah.
Another kid transferred to St. Luke's. That hurt us. Timmy's after his junior year, right? No, sophomore. No, junior. Savala, Jason Savala.
Yeah, it was after my sophomore year.
Yeah, that hurt us. So we lost a couple. No,
It was the junior year.
junior year, because he would have been there with Danny, and we would have been much better that year. But Timmy, I thought, he won a big game against Greenwich. He made a couple of big baskets. We were, with 3-3 in the FCAC early in the season. I thought Timmy, with Melzer, I thought he really started. He started every game.
Right.
And he took the third most shots. So I thought overall, on a spotty team, transitionals period, I thought he had a pretty good senior year. I stayed out of it. I tried not to get too wrapped up in it. I hated it was tough when his last game bothered me. I know I did a big thing on the air about it.
Right.
But you get over it and you move on. Bottom line is, it's part of just when he went to college. You gotta move on. So I've been following Tampa because he's involved with the Tampa program, and if he coaches someday, I'll be very much involved with his team that he coaches. But when your kid's playing, there is a connection that you have that is tremendous, and you miss that as a parent. And you miss that. And my other kid has been a little hurt. The team is probably a little better. He missed his whole sophomore year.
Oh, man.
So it took something. It was a harder transition for him. But with Timmy, he was through that process for the 4 years. He played sophomore. He played for the varsity, got in games, had some good moments. Junior year, for whatever the reason, it didn't quite mesh. Senior year, he had a pretty good year.
Right.
Life.
And you had a very good set shot. Like, you were
Good
quick
shooter.
with this shot. Like you said, good shooter. I mean, what would you say? I mean, coaches always encourage their players, at least, when I was a kid, take 200 shots a day. Were you the type of kid that would do that outside in the backyard, taking 200 shots or something like that?
I did it early on in my career. I think my signature was the mid-range, so it was a little, I think I just found that more enjoyable, and I think I got the hang of it a little easier. But early on in my career, I used the shooting gun we had at our high school for a little bit, and AAU certainly helped, and I do think shooting outside every now and then helped too. But yeah, so I mean, I did have some of those like workouts where I had like 200, 300 shots, but a lot of it was just natural, and it was just taking what I learned from middle school and just kind of applying it, just high school speed, and just maintaining my form, and just keeping at it, and just keep shooting whenever you get a chance in practice.
Right.
I always tried to shoot 50% in each game. I didn't take that many shots, granted, so maybe a little easier to do so, but I'm usually very hard on myself too, so I try to get to 50-60% on my gym shooting during games.
Right. So now the record wasn't great senior year, but you had a good senior year. Did you enjoy it? Did you look back and say, well, you know what? I enjoyed my senior year of basketball? Because one thing about high school, I tend to disagree when they say high school is the best time of your lives. I don't necessarily agree with that, but they definitely are the most carefree times of your lives. Would you say you walked out of there feeling good about your career?
Yeah, I think so. I remember talking about in the banquet, I wish I probably worked a little harder in some of the other, in like ball handling, and the other stuff you got to work on. But like I said, I thought I had a pretty good year. I think playing for Melzer and his staff was great. it's kind of really cool to kind of be back in that environment, of coaching. They're like a different type of coaching in terms of like just trying to apply like the hardship of it. So I really enjoyed playing for them. The record wasn't great. We had a lot of tough losses. I think we were like 4-16 or something like that, 3-17, something
No,
like that.
we won. I think we were 4, right?
I think we were 4-16. Yeah. So, there were a lot of long bus rides, after some tough losses. But overall, I thought it was a pretty good year. I thought it was great just to play with, my friends last time and, just get ready for the college transition. So, but overall, I thought it was pretty good. It wasn't great, but it was pretty good.
Right. Now, Chris, as a parent, it's always tough, when a kid graduates. How was senior night for you and your wife? It was the last time, his last home game. What was that like for you? Was
we
that
lost
emotional?
that game. Yeah, no, it was emotional. I'll tell you, I think the last game was even harder, the West Hill game, because Timmy played well in that game. We had a huge lead. We played so well against West Hill.
Right.
We were up. West Hill wasn't good, but we were probably up, I don't know, maybe 20, 25 in the third quarter. Mm-hmm. And we had and then we kind of fell apart, Timmy included.
Right.
He had a layup that was, no, we all fell up. They struggled. And he took Timmy out with about 6 minutes left. And he put Matthew Brandon, who had a little longer, a little better rebounder, taller.
Right.
And, we held off West Hill and won. And Timmy was not in the last 3 or 4 minutes. But that was a game that Melzer needed to win. It was his first year.
Right.
You know how parents can get sketchy. They don't understand the situation. They think it's Lombardi coaching.
Right.
They think they should win every game. And I remember walking out of there saying, you know what? I can't get on Danny. Danny needed to win this game. You can't blow a 25-point lead your first year against a team to end your season with that kind of loss would have been brutal. He looked at his lineups that day at the end, and he went a little different direction. I don't know if that bothered Timmy. I'm not going to say I wasn't bothered by it, but I understood it.
Right.
And they won, which is the most important thing. So I think that game was actually a little harder than the senior night, to be honest with you, because, it was kind of bittersweet. His career is over. They won.
Right.
He wasn't in there in the last 3 or 4 minutes, which you like all seniors to be in there in the last 3, 4, 5 minutes of his career. And we almost blew the lead. We had to make some free throws. It was a dramatic. It was the most dramatic finish to a 4-16 season you've ever seen in life.
Right.
I mean, it was one of those games you had to win. Simple as that.
Right.
And we did. And he was part of it. That made me feel good. And I remember after the game, Danny went to him because Danny and him are close.
Right.
And Danny went to him and said, "You okay?" Because Danny realized that he didn't play him. In the last 5, 6 minutes of his
We won
career.
though, so
And Danny said, "Yeah, I'm fine."
won,
And
so we're fine.
Timmy said,
Yeah,
"I'm fine." That was harder for a parent.
Right. Exactly.
The St. Joe's game, there wasn't anything memorable to the St. Joe's game.
Right.
We lost. It was at the end of the year. We didn't play very, very well. We knew one of the kids on St. Joe's from AAU, Omar, was a good point guard, and we got beat. That game, I don't even remember anything about that game, to be quite honest with you.
Tyler scored 1,000 points in that game. But we
I
lost,
do remember
so it
that,
doesn't matter,
but we lost.
Yeah.
Right.
The West Hill game, I remember more, which is the last game of the senior ever played at high school.
Right. And Tim, you were really respected by the coaches in that school, the faculty, because I believe when you graduated high school, you were given a prestigious scholarship award from the coaches. Talk about that a little bit and what that meant to you.
Yeah, so I was given the Men's Unsung Hero Award. I think that was given to the athlete who wasn't really recognized for his or her hard work or for his or her accomplishments on the particular team. Coach Melzer gave that to me. For that senior banquet, and I think the reason was because he had Tyler scoring 1,000 points. The team kind of stunk, so not that he was kind of like forced to give it to me, but I thought that he thought that that I worked pretty hard for him, and the transitional period was tough, I think, for some of our players. But I think I responded pretty well because I've kind of been under that coaching scenario or that coaching staff before in my life.
Right.
It was really awesome to win that award. Like my dad said, Nels and I are actually really close. He's coached me ever since I was like a 6th or 7th grader. So he knows what I've been through. He knows the effort and the time I put in, and I think he kind of sees some of the little things that I do. So I think that's one of the reasons why he gave it to me, and it was really awesome to see it. I think my mom was really happy. She's taking pictures, all that stuff. So
right.
I thought that was a really cool award to win.
Right. So tell me, how old were you when you were finally able to beat Dad one-on-one?
I don't even know.
We never really played. I would rebound for him. I remember one time in San Diego in California on vacation, we were driving up and down the coast, and I made him, when everybody else was going to Legoland, I made him go to I found an outdoor court. And I think I either bought a basketball there.
I must have wanted at like one of the carnivals or whatever.
Yeah, I think I bought, because I obviously wouldn't carry a basketball, wouldn't travel with it. But I made sure that I took him to this is the summer, and this would have been probably before his junior year, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe sophomore. But I know I took him to a gym outdoors in San Diego to do nothing but shoot jump shots for I don't know, a couple of hours. Then we went down to a Padre game against the Reds.
Yeah.
Chapman pitched the ninth inning, remember? But we did that. So I mean, I would always do everything I could, to help him. I never really played against him.
Right.
Golf, I played a little bit against him, but I always worked with him just to my rebound, and I would try to get him to a court. My job to me was to get him to where he could practice.
Right.
And I would try to get him to do that. Not that because he knew I wanted him to do it, but because he wanted to do it. And it was a combination.
Right.
Some days he did it, my old man's driving me crazy, I'll do it. Other days he wanted to do it. And I try to do that as much as I possibly can for him.
Right. Now, Chris, I would have a lot of people get mad at me if I didn't bring this up a little bit. 30 years now, 30th anniversary it'll be of you and Mike and the Mad Dog. It started September 5th, 1989.
That's right.
It's like yesterday you guys were breaking down who was better, Will Clark or Don Mattingly. But let me ask you, number one, is it hard to believe it's been 30 years
and
already?
I just thought of it since you said it, September 5th, 89, and I had Mattingly on TV today too. When you come to think of Mattingly.
I remember, it was a big debate. That
was a big debate.
You said Clark was better. He felt like Mattingly was better.
That was a big reason why they put us together.
Right, yeah.
Because that was the summer of '89. And, Mattingly was still quite in his heyday, and Clark obviously had a great year that year. The Giants won the pennant.
And the year before, he had led the National League in
RBIs in '88, right? So in '89, he was really, he was good. I mean, he was a very, very good player. So yeah, that was a little Clark and Mattingly. And that was a friendly debate with Mike. We had some hard ones later, but that was a friendly debate. And I do think, come to think of it, and they didn't put that debate in the 30 for 30, which they probably should have.
That was a great debate.
That was a good debate.
Yeah.
That summer we went to a lot of softball games together. We played a lot of softball all around Long Island and Brooklyn. I was not with Gene. I was not with his mother. So that debate was a very instrumental debate, I think, of convincing FA and management to put these two together.
Right.
I really do think, now that you say that, I think there was something to it. And I think they saw the chemistry and the kinetic energy, and people got into it.
Right. And Chris, I kind of enjoyed the show more when you two were kind of goofing on other things, when you two would have a good time laughing. I could think at the time the Yankees, it was Game 5 against the Angels in 2005. It was the ninth inning, and I think they were losing by a run. Jeter led off with a base hit, and right away, second pitch, A-Rod grounded into a double play. And I'll never forget you two. You love John Sterling, and you're listening to his call. And there was about 40 seconds of dead air after A-Rod did the double play, and you two just kept playing it back about 20 times because he did not say a word, because he just was like in disbelief. And it was the things like that I really enjoyed about the show.
It's interesting you picked that up, yeah.
Yeah.
The Yankees were a dominant theme with Mike and the Mad Dog because obviously, they were good in 90, they were very good in 94. I mean, in 93 they got good, they were getting better. 94 they were great, and then the strike. 95 they lost to Seattle in a great series. They win it in 96, Jeter's there, Mariano's there.
Yeah.
97 they lose a Game 5. They win it in 98, they win it in 99, they beat the Mets.
Yeah.
And then 01 they lose the heartbreaker to Arizona. I mean, they were a dominant part of the show for literally 13 years.
And you guys were on all the time.
I mean, after every game, nighttime, we did every show. The Yankees and the Knicks were the two things. The Knicks were good with Riley.
Yeah.
And those are the two things that really kind of spearheaded Mike and I together. But you're right. And Mike was good. Mike won 4 championships, and Mike handled that 04 loss to the Red Sox very well. Handled it very, very well. Because they lost that horrendous series to Boston after being 3-0 up. And they did a good job.
And you had felt after the Red Sox got beat.
I thought they were going to get back in that series.
Yeah, you said, why not?
Why not? Somebody was going to do it. Somebody was going to come from 3-0 down.
And you might have been the only one who thought that.
I thought that. I really thought they were going to win those last 2 games. And I was, I went to every one of those. I didn't go to Game 5, but I went to every one of those other games in that series. I was there in 03. I was there when they got buried. No, I didn't go to 4 and 5. I was there when they got buried in Game 3 when they got destroyed.
Yeah.
On that Saturday night.
19-8.
Whatever it was. 19-8 was that what it was?
Right.
I hit ball after. So I mean, I sensed that something was going on there, and I remember walking out of the ballpark. Well, if you're ever going to come back from 3-0 down, you need something cataclysmic to bring you back, and that was a cataclysmic game. But the Yankees were a big part of Mike and the Mad Dog in that period. To make a long story short, he's a little young to remember. He was 6, 7, 8 years old, but he was always. I remember he went to a Dodger-Met playoff game.
Yeah.
That was the game that Kent.
Yeah.
They had two guys thrown out at the plate back to back, Mets and Dodgers. And he was at that game. He had his little mitt. He didn't go with me. He went with somebody else.
Right.
And I remember he said, "Bye, Dad," and he was at the game. I remember that. I took him to I took him to a game earlier, and he met Torrey and Mariano in the Yankee dugout on a hot day. I mean, I took him to the Orioles in that probably was 04. It was 4 or 5. Red Sox game. And 04, and he loved the mascots. Right. And he loved Mr. Bird.
Oh, yeah.
The Bird mascot. Yeah. How he took him down to Baltimore, took him on the Acela train, and boy, did he love the Bird. So
that's all he wanted to see,
that's
right?
all he cared about was the dopey Bird. It was funny. And he was great the whole weekend, except when he went to the aquarium on Sunday. He hated the aquarium. He got cranky in that aquarium.
It was a long day.
On a Sunday morning, he got cranky. But we did a lot. He was my first child. I was 35 years of age when he was born.
Right.
I never thought I was going to have any kids. So he was I got married late in life. He was my first child. And he was a boy. And so, we put all that together. We always had a very good kinship together,
Right.
And, sports was something that, kind of, I made him get into sports. My second child was a daughter. She has no interest in it. Right. But he, whether he liked it or not, was going to get into it. And seeing him with the mascot, I took him to a St. John's game. He loved the Johnny mascot at his St. John's game. I took him to all these things as a kid.
Now, did you give him an opportunity to be a Yankee fan, or did you tell him?
Yeah, I had no problem with it.
Right.
He went to the Patriot-Giant game when the Giants beat the Pats. On that Saturday night NFL Network game when the Patriots was 15-0, and they beat him. The Patriots beat him. He was at that game. He went to a lot of big games that he probably doesn't remember in that period there. Yankees. The Knicks were bad, but the Yankees. I took them Met playoff games. He was in the mix there for a long period of time.
Right.
He really was. I haven't taken him to a Super Bowl or anything like that, but he's been at Green Bay to see Lambeau.
Oh, nice.
So he's seen LeBron play. I mean, he went to a lot of, he was the benefit of being the first child.
Right.
And I had the wherewithal to do it.
So this is a question for both of you. You leave for school, and I mean, you basically spent your whole life in New Canaan, Connecticut, and lived with your parents, your brothers and your sister. How hard and how difficult was it for you to leave that day when they took you to the airport?
I actually found it was pretty easy.
He did.
I wanted to get the hell out of here really bad. I think like you said, I've been in New Canaan my entire life. For 18 years I've had to be with, be a family, which was not a bad thing, but, I think just wanted to expand, just wanted to get out of Connecticut. I think not having the warm weather hurt, and I think a lot of things, just kind of pushed me away. And I think I was just really excited and just really eager to get out, just try to expand myself, and I found Tampa, which was great, and I was a flight away from home, so I wasn't too close to home, I wasn't too far, but I was honestly, I had no problem leaving, and I still don't. But yeah, so I mean, it's been pretty easy. I miss home every now and then, but I'm so distracted with school. So
you weren't homesick when you got there at all, or?
I was maybe for the first night, but I mean, we were stuck with school activities, and we had I think we had a school carnival in one of the main facilities. So I was really busy throughout, and basketball obviously came into play. So I was really busy throughout my years. So I had no problem with it, to be honest.
Right. It had to be tough for you.
It was hard, but They probably harder on my wife. I know the second day I was at Tampa, I went to the basketball office at Tampa, told him that he wanted to be the manager. They were impressed with him. So I could tell he really wanted to do this. I took him to visit Tampa his senior year. No, it was his junior year. His junior year. We went in April. Kobe's last game was we were there. So I took him to those 4 colleges, which I was pretty familiar with because I went to Rollins.
Right.
So I took him to all those 4 colleges. And I knew when you could tell he loved Tampa right away. You know, he was into it. You know, he liked the city feel to it. So I thought that he might go there. We were fortunate. Went to see some schools, other schools, College of Charleston, Vermont. But I knew that he liked the University of Tampa. And I'm glad he didn't go to Rollins.
Right.
And he would have had no issues there either. He liked Rollins. But Tampa was his, again, not too far from home. So I felt comfortable. And I knew it from the old days at the Sunshine State Conference when I was at Rollins. We used to play him all the time in sports.
Right.
So I was aware of it. So I felt comfortable that he was making the right choice. And so did my wife.
Right. So Tim, let me ask you, obviously you want to be a coach and we're going to get into that, but when would you say you said to yourself, someday I want to coach in some type of level? Was it probably like sophomore year of high school?
Yeah, I think it was freshman or sophomore year. I was one of the camp counselors and coaches for some of the little kid camps. So I really enjoyed just coaching little kids and just trying to teach basketball to younger minds. It wasn't until my sophomore year when Mike Evans gave me the opportunity to coach at his full court peace camp, which he just brought in inner city kids from like Bridgeport and all the other unfortunate areas to bring in to play basketball. So like it had more of like an older kid type feel. So I just really enjoyed putting in plays and yelling and making sure the kids are into it. But I think that was when I really wanted to be a coach, my sophomore year that summer. I also like just kind of like the older kid feel in the sense that like they pick up things a little quicker and they're a little more into it, and they're not bored, they're all that stuff. So I think I really started getting the coaching sophomore year, and I think Danny Melzer helped too. I think just playing under him for the X amount of years that I played under him, and I think for my senior year too, I really enjoyed the way he coached me, and I did what he said, and good things came every now and then. But yeah, it was really my sophomore year that I really enjoyed it, really wanted to coach.
Right. So currently you're taking sports management, correct,
right,
at Tampa?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And freshman year, you got on with the basketball team as a manager, correct?
Yeah.
Now, how did that come about? Did you talk to the coach over the summer? How did that come about?
So I knew that after senior year, I wasn't good enough to play for any sort of college team, which I was okay with. I kind of came to peace to it. So I felt like that the next best route in terms of getting into coaching would be the manager of whatever school I went to. So I could have went to like a bigger school, but I didn't really want that huge college feel. I kind of wanted to be like, I didn't want to be a number, some of those like huge schools that you see, like, some of the Big East or Big Ten schools. So I feel like that, the Division II route was the way to go. So I emailed the assistant coach in the summer, said I was interested, told him about some of my experience, playing varsity basketball and whatnot. So I come down like the first week or so, I move in, and I go to the coach's office, like my dad said, and I just, I met him the first time in person, but I was emailing with him back and forth that summer before I came down. So and I was appointed the manager. They really impressed with me, and I've been there ever since. So it's been good.
So you kind of had a good idea going into your senior year of high school that this was something you wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And a lot of kids that age, they don't always do that. They're still thinking about having fun, being a kid, which is normal. But what I find interesting too is, as manager of this basketball team, you gave up winter recess. You weren't home for Thanksgiving. You weren't home for Christmas. They had a big tournament, and you sacrificed a lot. But it sounds like you really enjoy doing this. And how has it been these last couple of years?
It's been good. I personally don't mind the short winter recess. I mean, I come home like the weekend after my birthday or so, or like a few days after, and then I go back to school on like the 26th or 7th of December. And Thanksgiving, like you said, I don't come home. So I really enjoy being with the team. I really enjoy, kind of being under the coach's eye and kind of having a bit of a say in some manner with practices and games and stuff. So I personally think it's a great experience, and I've been loving it so far. The players, I think have treated me with a lot of respect, and they've seemed to, seem to like me and, like take me under their wing a little bit. So I thought that was really cool. But, Yeah, for like the last few years, it's been good. I've been getting into more responsibility. This past sophomore year, I was doing a little bit more of like recruiting emails and just helping out the coach with my assistant coaches some of the prospect camps, or just looking at film or helping them with scouting reports or whatever. So I've been appointed more responsibility my second year, which was great. Obviously, great to put on the resume, and I truly enjoy it and I really love it. Hopefully, my junior year, it'll be probably about the same. We'll see what happens. Obviously, we'll obviously get down there first, but I've really enjoyed it so far, and I don't regret anything.
Right. And obviously, watching this type of game compared to high school, big difference, correct?
Yeah,
huge
huge
difference. You've probably
difference.
learned so much just by watching the practices, stuff like that.
Yeah, huge. Our head coach is Richard Schmidt. He's 76, so the practices are a little different from what I was in high school. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's such a huge difference with the with the athleticism and I think just with the skill set. With New Canaan, it's like a small high school and like a small conference in Connecticut. I mean, you don't see any huge players come out of the FCAC, unfortunately. So I think just the difference that I've seen, and for us, we play we play one or two Division I schools like once a year. So and even that gap between from Division II to I is just unbelievable. We played Florida my freshman year, and just to see Tampa comparison to Florida under Mike White, it's just even that even that gap was huge. So I think just seeing from high school to college was great, and I think Division II is good, but I think the gap between Division II and I is even greater. So it's been good. So I mean I've been bouncing around. So I've been watching some basketball.
Right, Chris. I don't need to ask you this because I probably know the answer, but I mean, how impressed are you with this young man? Just the way
he's done a good job.
He's very assertive, and he knows what he wants, and he goes right after it. He doesn't, take any shortcuts. So just talk about that a little bit.
He knew exactly what he wanted to do when he went down there. I know the coaches like him. He went to Indianapolis all summer here this summer to work for the NCAA.
Right.
So I mean. Coaching's tricky, you're gonna have to pay your dues, We'll see what happens, and it's too early yet to even think about it. 2 years from now, we'll see what happens, but I do think he will put himself in a position where he should be able to find something, at probably a Division II level in a couple years. Now, he may not want me to do it, but if he needs me to make some calls, and that's not gonna hurt, I will definitely do it. Right. But I don't know if he will need that. The coaches at Tampa, I know Schmidt, I go down to see him. I go to the first game every year. This year I'll go to a different one. But the first 2 years I've gone to a game, first game of the year, that November, because I don't see him Thanksgiving. So I go down there right after the World Series. And I know that Schmidt, the first year, came up to me privately. And he said, you did a heck of a job. This is some kid we got here.
Right.
So I know he's made his mark. But, again, making your mark and then making it a career, it's not that easy. We all thought that Chris Russo was going to be a sports fan when I was 17, 18 years of age. But being a sports fan into a career, that's a big different step. There's some sacrifices you got to make.
Right. And you originally wanted to be a play-by-play.
I wanted to be a play-by-play guy, right? So I kind of fell into the right thing,
right.
And being talk show host. But I mean, there are sacrifices in these kinds of fields that you got to make. You really can't have a family at 22 years of age, because then you're going to be trapped with the family, and there's only so far you can go. So you have to understand that. But Timmy seems to understand that it's going to be a process. It's not going to be easy. I think they've given him a taste of a little bit of everything. I'm not saying he's going to be able to run a program when he's 22, 23 years of age. But, I mean, will he be able to be a third assistant on a Division II scenario? I would like to think that could occur.
Right.
And if that happens, you do that for a couple of years. You'd be amazed how Bobby Knight got the Army when he was 27 years of age.
Yeah.
And you'd be amazed how quickly, those breaks could come to you. So we shall see. I also could see him coaching a good high school program.
Oh, yeah.
I could see him getting involved in running a good high school program in a big town that likes its high school basketball. Because kids will like Timmy. Kids will play hard for him.
Right.
Yeah, he's got that personality where, I think they will see that he's got he's got their best interests at heart. Now, again, you got to be able to be a head coach. You got to be a pain in the neck sometimes so they can't stand you.
Right.
But you got to have, so you got to find that happy medium where you're their friends and you have a kinship with them, but by the same token, you can sort of be their coach.
Right.
And that's tricky. And he's going to have to learn how to handle that. But I do see a path for him to make a career out of this. Make a long story short.
And you're not stressed over it. You really love doing what you're doing, correct? I mean, there's not a day where you're like, oh, this is too much. You're enjoying every second of doing this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and you have to have a passion for it, because if you don't, then it's never going to work. So, I mean, the fact that this is what you want to do and you're passionate about it is the reason you're so successful at it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I don't see any regrets that I made with the basketball path that I've chosen. I think my dad's right. I think I'm gonna have to learn how to kind of be like a hard ass every now and then. But again, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I think now it's just trying to gain as much experience as I can, and just try to just take it day by day and see what happens. So.
Right, Chris. I mentioned Mike and the Mad Dog, but now also in September 15th, you will enter your 12th year at Sirius Radio. You've done 11 years already. And you've made the transition really good, because you've kind of had two careers now. Mike and the Mad Dog, it was New York, it was locally, and now you've had this career nationally, and you've really been able to make the transition. Just talk about, being at Sirius. One thing that I think is great about Sirius is you don't have to stop what you're doing. When you're in a groove, there's no commercial to say, okay, time out. You can keep going, and it's really been a great show. I think.
Well, creatively, it's fun.
Yes.
You're not wrapped up with Mets and Yankees and all the local teams. So from a creative standpoint, you enjoy doing it. Plus, most of the national shows don't take phone calls. Very few. Colin Coward, Dan Patrick.
Right.
These guys don't take calls. We're the only ones that really take calls. Plus, we're the only ones who do some baseball. I enjoy doing it. I think we've made some inroads. I think the channel's pretty good.
You've had 4 contracts now, so
yeah,
you've
fourth
definitely
one.
Listen. It's like anything
4
else.
contracts.
If you're not selling
Everybody get
cars,
that first contract. Getting the contracts after the first contract's the hard thing.
If you're not selling cars, they get rid of you. If you're not doing a good job, you're not getting these 4 contracts.
Right.
So, from that point of view, you have to be proud of the
absolutely.
transition.
I've been able to have 2 careers.
Yeah, you really.
I had the 19 years with FAN, and then I had the 11 years, or it'll be 15 years when I'm done.
Right.
This last 4-year deal. So that's 19 at one place, 15 at another. It is different, you have to learn how to maneuver with a show a little differently, but the creativity's fun. And I don't worry so much about if the show isn't great that day. There's a million shows to do.
Right.
So I know how to get through a program in decent shape. The summertime can be a little trickier at a series because I can't rely on the Mets and the Yankees, but this summer so far has been pretty good. Football is self-explanatory, it takes care of itself. So, yeah, I've had the 2. I've been lucky. I've actually had the 2 careers.
Is the audience tricky sometimes? Because New York, you knew what you got. You had New York callers, you knew what to expect from them. But now you're taking callers from all over the...
Well, I'll give you one just recently that is interesting. It tells you everything you need to know about Sirius. On Friday, it was 40th anniversary of Munson's death.
Yes, yeah.
So, I remember that well. 1979, Thurman Munson, Yankee catcher, died in a plane crash. Right? He was flying his own plane. He was a big Yankee. I was at Oney's liquor store. I was 18. I was 19. 19, yeah. And I remember my father called me, not going to believe this Thurman Munson died. It was a Thursday afternoon. Well, I did a big piece on it Friday. And I did Marty Appel, and he wrote the great book on Munson. He was his biographer. He's a former Yankee. He was the Yankee PR guy. Right. And he gave me a couple stories, one of which was interesting I hadn't heard before. He wasn't wearing a seatbelt with the plane, by the way, when it landed. But the one story he gave me was that he was annoyed about with Munson. In the early 70s, he arranged all the catchers in Yankee history to come to Yankee Stadium, Old Timers Day, to take a picture with Munson. That's Dickie, Berra, and Ellie Howard.
Wow.
Dickie, of course, played with Ruth and Garrick, Hall of Famer. Berra, great catcher, Hall of Famer. And Howard, first black player in the Yankees, won an MVP. So he has the 3 catchers show up at Yankee Stadium, and they're waiting outside the dugout for Munson, the grouchy old Munson. And Munson was a grouch, cranky old Thurman. Oh, yeah. So Marty goes down in a clubhouse. Thurman, you got the 3 catchers here. And Thurman says, well, I'll be there in 15 minutes. So Thurman finally comes out to take the picture with the 3 catchers. Marty was annoyed at Thurman. 7 or 8 years later, he goes out to Canton where Thurman lives. He goes to their house for whatever the reason, and the first thing he sees is a big photograph of the 4 catchers: Thurman, Howard, Dickey, and Berra.
Wow.
So Thurman thought enough of it to make it a big photograph and put it up on the wall. Right. So we talk about this. That's one of the stories he gives me on Friday. Make a long story short, interview ends. He was a great spot. 20 minutes later, I take a phone call. Guy calls me from Naples, Florida. Never heard from him. Right. Robert from Naples, whatever. Chris, you're not going to believe this. I'm an anesthesiologist. I'm from Canton.
Oh, wow.
The day of that plane crash, I was on the 5th hole of the Canton Golf Club, which is adjacent to the airport.
Right.
I knew Thurman. He came in his red Thunderbird with his father-in-law, who did not get on the plane. And he waves to me. The day.
Really?
5 holes later, we saw a plume of smoke.
Oh.
We didn't know it was Thurman. 5 holes. Now, where are you getting that? Got that on Sirius.
You could never make
That is,
up, yeah.
and it's funny, the next day I got a note from the senior correspondent at the White House for Fox News.
Really?
Who was an 11-year-old kid in a Jersey camp, and the Munson thing meant a lot to him, and he heard Marty Appel. I have it on my phone, I can show it to you.
That's a great
Great.
story.
And Mike Emanuel was his name. No, I've never heard of him.
Right.
Listener, everything else, but I wouldn't watch Fox News, I don't watch the politics stuff. Sends me a note how much he loved the interview with Marty Appel. So you never know who's listening.
Right.
In the same interview, I got a guy who calls up from Naples, a caller, and this Mike Emanuel who's listening down at the White House.
Right.
And you got him telling you a story about the 4 catchers.
That's unbelievable.
That's why you do Sirius.
Yeah. And it's been a great,
That's why it's fun.
Really, and I know a guy, he lives in Pittsburgh, he's not a sports fan, and he loves you, and he said, I just listen to him because the guy is so passionate, I just love hearing him talk. He goes, I care less about the sports, but I listen to him.
Really? No kidding.
Yeah, so I mean, those are the
Got to be engaging. Got to be
You
engaging.
got to be engaging, and that's the type of audience you've been able to,
generate.
Yeah, and it's not easy because, you had a lot to lose when you went there. I mean, because there were your critics, I'm not going to bring up the writer's name, but one of the things that bothered me the most about this writer is when he tried to refer to you as a mean-spirited guy.
Yeah, I was Phil Mushnick.
Yes,
Yeah.
well, you brought him up. But anyway, I always thought that was unfair because you could disagree with somebody, just like in politics, you could disagree with their politics. Doesn't necessarily make them a bad person just because you don't agree with something they say. And I just always thought that was so out of line, that comment. Something that, and he's a good writer.
No, he's good, and he's smart.
That was a terrible job by him.
That was a long. I think the biggest thing I'm happy about probably is everybody thought I was going into obscurity.
Yeah, and you weren't.
And I think everybody thought, geez, he's going to do Siri. He's going to leave Mike and the Mad Dog to do Siri. Nobody's ever going to find him. And I think we proved that that's not the case. I actually get more publicity when I'm not in Mike and the Mad Dog, because when people hear me who don't have Sirius, they're so wrapped up in it. Yeah. Neil Best does stories when I was at the Beth Page thing. Dog at Beth Page, that's when I saw Tiger. Right. He said on his website, that's the biggest, you'd be amazed how many people email him on the website. Dogs, they don't see me as much. So when they see me, the people who don't have Sirius, it's a bigger deal. Right. So I think in a lot of ways, being out of the limelight, and then when I have my moments where I'm back in it, I think it's actually helped me. It's the weirdest thing. They don't get tired of me.
So you're forgiven Best for reviewing your books bad. I know you weren't.
Oh, he did. That's right. He did do that. That's a boy, Mike. You're a good friend. That was a better book than he gave credit for.
Yeah. Oh, I got both of them. They were great. When you picked Mo #9, Rivera, I thought that was.
Oh, did I really? Yeah. Geez, I got to go back and take a look at that.
And I always thought that with your father too. You always referred to him as Mario.
Yeah, Mario Rivera. We called him Mario.
Father was a great spot.
He was good. Tony's take.
Yeah, he really was. And you implemented him. And Tim, I know for you that Mike and the Mad Dog show was your favorite show. I know you were heartbroken when they left. But
he was with me at the All-Star game in 2008 when I was with Mike, and everybody came up to us during that All-Star game with Mike.
Yeah.
Doug, Chris, don't leave, and he was right there with us. So him and Mike had a very good relationship.
Yes, yeah.
Very good, because he was the first child out of the Mike and the Mad Dog theme. Yeah. And him and Mike really, you'd be amazed. Even to this day, if you saw him, excellent relationship with Mike. Would you agree?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think he does take an interest in me, and at the 30 premiere, he was really engaging with me. So he's always been a really nice guy to me. He's always been really charming.
That's what he's known by.
whatnot, yeah.
Right. And so now, Tim, let's talk a little bit about this internship that you just completed. You know, again, you gave up a whole summer to do it, but it doesn't seem to bother you. You love doing it. And I believe it was the Indianapolis headquarters, but you went out to Illinois, correct?
Yeah, so yeah.
Talk about the internship.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, we start off in at the NCAA headquarters in Indianapolis. Our job was, you know, like the NCAA incorporated a new live period, you know, for Division I coaches to these players. Unfortunately, we kind of overlapped with USA basketball, so it's very hard for kids to kind of choose between the two. You could do both if you wanted to, but I think kids gravitated more towards USA basketball. Anyway,
Right.
yeah. So we start off at the NCAA headquarters. You know, our jobs were basically to make sure the kids and the chaperones got to the campsites. So there were 4 regional sites. There was a East Coast regional site, which was at UConn. Midwest region, which is at Illinois, which is where I went. The South region was at Houston, and then the West Coast region was at Grand Canyon University in Phoenix. Yeah, so the interns and I, we were appointed different, just randomly, just appointed different sites. So I was in charge of the Midwest region. So I had to make sure that the kids from the Midwest region got to the site, whether that be a flight or a car rental or whatever the case may be. We also had the kids to take care of their lodging and all that stuff. So we did that. And then when the time came, we had to go to the site, University of Illinois in Champaign, and help run the camp. So it was me, and the 2 other workers I worked with, and then 2 supervisors from the NCAA. So we all traveled out to Illinois. We kind of did like more of the behind the scenes work. You know, we were in charge of registration, making sure the kids had the medical forms organized, make sure they got there transportationally. And just make sure that the student managers and student athletes that were working the camp as well were doing the right things during drills and games and stuff. So it was a great experience. I mean, a lot of big names showed up, which was really cool. And it was also really interesting to kind of go behind the scenes and how coaches recruit and how the NCAA is trying to like make amends or kind of like clean up their act, I guess, you know, with some of the other scandals that have been going on. So it was a really good experience. It was really busy. It was really stressful, but you know, it was a first year camp, so you kind of had to expect that. But it was a really great experience, and you know, it was awesome upon the resume, and you know, I really enjoyed working with the people I did.
Right, and you know, we kind of text back and forth when we were going to do this interview, and you know, you tell me a little bits and pieces about it, but it sounds like you really enjoyed yourself, and I mean, it sounds like these are the sacrifices you have to make if you want to go to that next level, correct?
Yeah, I first had no problem giving up this summer. I think it was just the fact that I'd never been to Indianapolis before in my life. Maybe if I spent a weekend before I went, you know, kind of got a feel for it, maybe it would have been a little easier. But it was my first time in the Indianapolis area, so I think that was the first time I've really gotten homesick a little bit. But again, I was so busy with the work, so it was like the first few days I was trying to find myself or just trying to get along with the other interns and kind of just, you know, just keep myself busy and whatnot. So I thought that it was obviously really great, and I personally don't mind the sacrifices so far. I think my dad's going to tell me that's going to be a rude awakening for me, but you know, I've been enjoying it so far. I've had no problem with it this summer. It's a lot of in and out trips, you know, just traveling all over the place. So it's been great, you know, and I've really enjoyed it so far. So it's been good.
That's great. You know, before we go, I want to ask you about this. Tim, you're Chris's firstborn, obviously, and like he said, there's a bond there that, you know, was there from the start. You know, everything he learned about being a father, it started with you. Just tell me how much this man has meant to you in your life, and you know, what you take from him each and every day.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, I think he's done a great job. He's obviously kind of not forced me into sports, but he kind of, you know, pushed me along into the sports field. So, I was kind of trying out different sports at a young age, and I think I just picked up. I think baseball, soccer, and basketball were the 3 sports, and then golf recently for the past few years. So, I think he's done everything in his power to, you know, push me towards the sports field. So. I think it's out of his hand now, but I mean, I think he did a great job, you know, just exposing me to some of these events or taking me to some of these games or just, you know, kind of informing me about some of the sacrifices I've had to make, especially with basketball, and I'm going to make in the future. So I think that he did a great job just exposing me and, you know, just trying to inform me about some of these different sports and some of the sacrifices. But you know, like he spends every day trying to, you know, do his best with all of us. So. He tries his best, especially with some of my siblings who aren't as invested as in sports. So, but again, he does what he can, and and he's been really invested in everyone's lives and our family, so it's been really great.
Right, and Chris, this young man.
Well, he's a good kid. Timmy's got a good heart. He wouldn't hurt anybody. I think he's not afraid of hard work. Again, he certainly he understands what this is going to take,
right.
And it doesn't seem to intimidate him. He's done everything the proper way. He really has. Listen, he's still a teenager, quote unquote. Does he drive too fast? Probably. There are things that that any father or parent could tell you that with their nobody's perfect, and he's a good. You know that he is going to do the right thing. He knows the difference between right and wrong, and that's all you can do. There's only so much you can do with the kids. That eventually they're going to have to make their way in life. You try to set the good example.
Right.
But eventually they're going to have to make their way in life, and that really kind of starts when they get to college. They're not under your auspices anymore. I can't control. He's 20 years old. I can't tell him what to do. He's allowed to do anything he basically wants. I don't. If he wants to go move to Alaska, I can't stop him. So you got to hope you've paved the way so he makes some good decisions. Is what it comes down to, and you do the best you can to help.
Right.
And in this case, my father didn't really have the wherewithal. He was in a different business,
right.
So he didn't have the ability to help me and teach me or guide me into the things that I wanted to do. Now I have his personality, which is the most important thing.
Exactly.
Because I'm sort of Tony in a lot of ways. There's a lot of him that I see now that I didn't see 30 years ago. But I have some ability to guide him or his brother, wherever, into areas where I think that he can be relatively successful in sports. I can make a phone call.
Right.
We helped, my agent helped him get this, to be fair, helped him get this in Indianapolis.
And there's nothing wrong with
Nothing wrong with that. I didn't have to hire
Connections.
him, but you got to put the resume in front of him.
Right.
My father didn't know anybody in sports, didn't know a radio station owner. So it took me 8 months to get a job. That's what you want to avoid if you can with him. When he graduates college, it takes maybe the summer off, but once we get to the fall, he's got someplace to go.
Right.
But he's a good kid, so I'm confident that he'll be okay. That's the bottom line. That's all you can help with you as a parent.
Right. Well, guys, this was a lot of fun. It was an honor for me. Chris, first off, congratulations on 30 years.
Good job, Mike. You've been on top of it today. Yeah.
Really, in my opinion, are one of the pioneers who really made sports radio what it is today, and I really congratulate you.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
And Tim, I got to tell you, we talked probably since March when we talked about this, and I got to tell you, for a kid who's 20 years old, you act like someone my age, 43, and I really applaud you and the kind of man you are, and I know you're going to do great things, and I really wish you good luck.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Really
Mike, great
appreciate it.
job. Thanks, pal. Appreciate it.
This past month, Christopher Russo celebrated 30 years as one of the very best in sports talk radio. For 30 years, he has brought us so many great memories, ones that will last a lifetime. While that's impressive, I think the most impressive thing we learned tonight, though, about Christopher Russo is Chris Russo, the father. You witnessed it firsthand by watching his son, Timmy, and the goals that Timmy has for himself in his future endeavors. And speaking of Timmy, you listen to him tonight and you just see a young man who has his mind set on what he wants to do, and he's not going to let anything stand in his way. To me, he's the next Russo to give us 30 great years in the world of sports. For Hometown Heroes, I'm Mike Kenichi saying good night, everyone.